Thank you. If you could come, please. So, good evening and, oh, pardon, we are really in COVID time. Good evening and good night. And for the people who are joining us from different parts of the world, welcome to the official opening of We Are Afrika. This is a hybrid exhibition, meaning this is mostly a virtual exhibition with a digital catalog, but we have some exhibition copies here in Washington, D.C., and some original artworks. This is a special moment for me as the art curator of the World Bank. It's the first time we are opening a hybrid exhibition. And this is because this project started in 2017 with a Vice Presidency for Africa, and they have been our partners, wonderful partners, all along. And the Vice Presidency became 2 Vice Presidencies for East and West, for the Center from the South, and the exhibition that was planned as a series of residencies for artists here in Washington, D.C., because of COVID, converted into a virtual exhibition. Still, we thought that the artists deserved to be heard and their stories were powerful enough to go online, even if we couldn't meet with them in person. With that purpose, we started a series of monthly artist talks, and we have been visiting studios of artists, we have had panels with artists, and this is the final panel of 3 of today, which is really a special occasion to hear from multiple artists, both here on stage with me and online, joining us from Niger and Rwanda. So I would like to thank many people for this exhibition. First of all, I would like to thank Anna Kagwabanga from the Executive Director Office here at the World Bank, who has been one of the forces behind this exhibition. She had the vision to present the 22 countries from her constituency in a show, and fortunately, the Vice Presidency for Africa really embraced the idea of using art as a platform to talk about the different strategy key points of their work, more specifically the Human Capital Project and Human Capital Plan, and as well now the climate change and the COVID emergency. So many of these artists have been touching upon these topics from many different angles, though there is a variety of points of view and a variety of media. We have artists living on the continent and artists from diaspora. So we understood that this is a new world, and we are opening the door to discussion in any form and possible shape. So I would like to introduce with this the Vice President, Ousmane Diagana, who is with us to really represent this wonderful partner and this wonderful project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marina, and thank you for the very wonderful art in my space in Africa West. They are extremely inspiring, and we hope that we can get more. I'm very, good afternoon, friends and colleagues. I'm very delighted to be here and to be one of the co-sponsors of the We Are Afrika, the power of women and youth. This is a groundbreaking hybrid exhibition of the art work from some of Africa's up and coming artists showcasing women's empowerment, COVID-19 resilience, and climate resilience and climate change prevention. In fact, tackling climate change is at the core of our strategic priorities. This morning I was meeting with my SD team discussing about the devastating effect of flooding in every single West and Central Africa. So the visual were absolutely devastating. And this is clearly an indication that climate change is a reality everywhere, in particular in Africa and also within Africa in Sahelian country, in the Gulf of Guinea country, in the Lake Chad countries. So climate change is really one of the biggest challenges of our time. And as I was saying, in our region, it's no longer a distant threat. It's part of our day-to-day life and living conditions. Up to 32 million people in our region may be forced to move by the climate crisis in the near future, unless we act now with a sense of urgency and with all the type of support that we can provide to our client, including awareness, and I think art exhibition also is part of that. Because this exhibition helps promote the important message that the time to take bold and swift action to prevent the climate crisis is now, and that the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of immediate investment in prevention. The World Bank latest Africa Pulse report estimates that sub-Saharan Africa will require between 30 and 50 billion each year until 2030 to finance climate adaptation. To address this challenge, we have put climate at the heart of our work and plan to deliver 22.5 billion for climate action in sub-Saharan African countries through the next generation of Africa Climate Business Plan. In West and Central Africa, in particular in Sahel, we have put in place programs such as the pastoralism operation that benefit to 5 countries in our region, which help pastoral herders in their agricultural practices across those countries that I have just mentioned. Those are the 5 Sahelian countries plus Senegal. In addition, more than 5 million will be invested over the next 5 years in building climate resilient community across 11 Sahelian countries that are part of the Great Green World Initiative. This is a space that go from Senegal to Djibouti, and of course crossing several countries, Mauritania, Nigeria, Cameroon, etc. So this initiative will finance over 60 projects covering a variety of sectors, including agriculture, energy, and transport, with a focus on promoting livelihood, restoring degraded landscapes, and improving agricultural productivity. Art is a force for social change and a powerful tool for highlighting social inequalities. So I sincerely hope that through this exhibition, each one of us will be inspired to mobilize our government and our partners and all the communities to develop green energy, protect natural resources, and mitigate climate shocks. Let me end by thanking all the artists, the colleagues throughout the bank and the art program team for creating this exhibit. It's an emotional journey to promote art for social change and joint action. So thanks everybody who has been part of this initiative and this effort. We owe this to our children and future generations in West and Central Africa, and of course in all Africa, and certainly beyond Africa. So thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
From here. Thank you very much, Vice President for Western and Central Africa, Ousmane Diagana. It's such a delight being here with Marina and those of you that are joining us today and the incredible audiences that are joining us online. It is a major delight for this exhibition to finally take step and be present and available for us to view and have conversations about development and the issues that the artists are exploring. On that note, I'd love to invite the Director for Strategy and Operations, Dr. J. Humberto Lopez.
Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you very much, and thank you also to Ousmane. This has been a long journey since 2017, when we started with this program, and I think that in the same vein as Ousmane, Africa East and South is really honored to be part of this event and of this exposition. We are glad that the exhibition focuses on topics such as youth, gender, and climate change, because there are different ways to put forward different concerns. And in the same way that art can reflect about challenges and ways to improve the constraints that we have in Africa on these areas, this is something that we have also at the center of our work in the region. When you're thinking of the youth, it's important to start thinking that a kid born today is very likely to see the 22nd century. They will reach to end this century and enter into the new century. You have to be only 78 years old at that time. It's not that far for me. Well, for us, yes, but for them, it's not going to be that far. Well, for some of us, I don't know. No? But the important thing is that they are going to be our hope. They are going to be the engine of change. They are those that are going to be making Africa, the future Africa. And at the present time, we will have to be supported and to create the systems for them to succeed. We are not going to be able to succeed for them, but at least we have to help them succeeding. And this will require that we build the schools that are going to be able to give them the human capital to go forward. This will require that we create economies that are strong enough to create jobs for many of these kids. Africa, the growth of the African population is very high. So we have to ensure that we are able to absorb them once they have finished their studies. And when you start thinking of the challenges in recent years, I'm not going to start thinking of challenges in the future that we have no clue of what we are going to have there. It's a question to put in the center as a concern. We have COVID. Many of the kids couldn't go to school for 2 years. Many of them dropped school. And we have to be thinking about how we are going to regain the losses in the education of these 2 years that they spent at home, in some cases in difficult circumstances. All of you here have gone through the same, and I don't know how many, I see one kid here, but I don't know how many have small kids going in a school that have to be working from home and do distance schooling. Everybody that I know that kids that were in primary or secondary school, they were desperate here. We are talking in a country where connections, internet, computers, iPads are at the top of what you can expect. You can imagine in a rural area of Sudan or of Ghana or of other parts what this has been. So this is something important. I think that when we are talking about what the current global context, whether it's because of higher interest rates in some countries or whether it's because of the war in Ukraine, what you have there is that there are many concerns about the ability of the economies to go forward at high speed and be able to generate the jobs that we need to absorb those youth entering the labor force in the coming years. So this is the type of thing that again is not only the bank who has to be pushing for it as both a concern and as a hope, but I think that to the extent that people with different sensitivities and people with sensitivities that are going to be reaching to a different audience to the one that we can reach, I think it would be it would be fantastic. Talking about gender, I think that I still remember when I moved to work on Africa the first time, that was year 2011. And for me at the time, thinking about gender issues was the gap, the wage gap that exists in the advanced countries between male and female. That was the biggest concern. And then I started working in South Sudan. And it was the time South Sudan became independent, 2011, so the bank was very active there. So the first times I traveled there, and I was listening what are the gender issues that we have to face. And you could hear the stories of girls that when they became at 13 or so in puberty, they would be sold for a good number of cows. I'm not kidding, it was cows. And that was it, the deal. And it was a time my daughter was 13 at the time, so I still remember that was revolving for me. I mean, say how this is possible, no? Fortunately, this is not all of Africa. Africa is much better than that, but this is the kind of thing that when you start looking at gender issues, in many cases we are talking about not just equality of wages, not about equality of rights. In many cases we are talking about dignity. We are talking about bigger things. Putting it in front of everybody that this is something that we have to do every day, I think is important. Not because we have targets in the bank to operations that are going to cover gender issues or gender tags, etc., but because this is the right thing to do. This is what we need to do because this is good for development, this is good for the African population. And just a word on climate change, at the risk of repeating a sentence that everybody uses, we are the first generation that is suffering it big time, and we are the last generation that have an opportunity to do something big time. And at the very same time, we are not able to convince even our generation how we are going to be doing something. So once again, since perhaps we are not being very effective at convincing people of these issues, and starting with climate change, going back to gender, and going back to the youth, looking at other ways to address these issues that are extremely important for the African population, for Africa, for the continent, for the future Africa, but also for the world as such, I think is something very much welcome. So with that, let me congratulate the artists, and not only congratulate them, let me ask them to continue using your art to highlight these issues, to put the youth, to put gender, to put climate change at the center of a debate that is not going to be academic, that is not going to be policy-driven like we can have in the bank, that is going to be something that has to be discussed everywhere. And an art gallery is such a good place also to have a conversation about these topics. Marina, thank you very much also to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Director for Strategy and Operations, Vice Presidency, Eastern and Southern Africa. We are going to turn our eyes to the screen and enjoy the promo video for our event today. Africa is an awe-inspiring continent because of technology, cities and green spaces, oceans, music, cinema, and people. Yet, the continent is not without its challenges. Hundreds of Africans have had to flee the devastating effects of the rising sea levels and erosion due to climate change, leaving behind their livelihood, aspirations, and opportunities. Women continue to be a force for economic growth and job creation.
They constitute a large share of Africa's farmers. Yet women are increasingly more vulnerable because they tend to lack capital buffers to protect them from the adverse impacts of crisis. They work primarily in informal and service sectors. And the impacts of COVID-19 are strongly felt. But through all this, Africans are transforming their continent for the better on their own terms. And it's these stories that We Are Afrika showcases.
Thank you to the World Bank Art Program for getting this work out there, for having artists start conversations. Welcome, Michael, how are you doing? Yes, and on that note, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Douglas Dubois. I'm a filmmaker, theater maker, and producer, originally from Uganda, based out here in Washington, DC. I'm the creator and creative director and founder of Sebamala Arts Limited, a nonprofit that creates advocacy, empowerment, and empowerment programming for women through film production, equality in films and productions across East Africa, Uganda, and now in the United States. On our panel today, we have amazing artists that have joined us, some of whom have traveled far and wide to be with us here today. Let's give them a mighty welcome. And we do have audiences that are joining us online. We are streaming live for today. We also have a couple of artists who will be virtual for the rest of the session. And over the last couple of minutes, we've had the pleasure of hearing from leadership at the World Bank who have been very fundamental in organizing and creating this exhibition, We Are Afrika, the Power of Women and Youth. It's such a delight being in the presence of, good sir, as you live, yes. Pleasure. Have a lovely day. Having fundamental offices such as the vice presidencies head on work like this is very crucial because art has been used as an avenue to start conversations about things that most of us find challenging to address. And in a developmental space as this, as the World Bank, it is crucial that conversations around gender, around equality, around climate change are also found in ways that are more creative to start conversations. So thank you, Marina, and the World Bank, our team, for getting this event and the exhibition together. Let's start with a few thoughts and introductions of the artists that we have. I'll start on my left. Yes, that's Taki Gold, who's joining us from Liberia. Michael just joined us. Thank you for making it. Truly a pleasure. And Hakim from Comoros. Pleasure having you here. Let's start with you, Taki, on your work. You're glonned in a crown today, and I know that in your paintings there is such visual expression that you create. And in an earlier conversation, I know that the work that you create centers women in Liberia, women that raised you, women that took care of you as a child, and your work is an homage to them. And you earlier mentioned that war was your mother and the women in your community were your father. Do start there and tell us how your work has been able to delve into conversations around gender and women representation. Yes.
Oh, thank you. That was very smart. That was a private conversation, but I'm glad you brought that up. So I'm Taki, and thank you all for being here. I feel spoiled and blessed to be a part of my story. Age 6, I was introduced to a civil war in Liberia, and just by default, I had 11 women around me, and that was my group. And I saw war for the first time, which is very honest. It shows you everything at once. So when I look at my group, I said, uh-oh. Because me and all women, and I just thought, we had no chance. But they were the most powerful force. And the reason why I said that war was my father and was my mother and those women were my father, because at 6, when I saw war, I automatically saw power, I saw fear, I saw strength in all of these men. And these women, they showed me that there was a big void that was missing. And they taught me how to find the beauty within the void that is war. Because in order for these boys and to grow up and these men to be doing the horrific thing that war sets a stage for, they had to lack value. They said it in a way that when you're not told that you're God from the beginning, you tend to become God by force. So I saw a lot of these men trying to become valuable with force. And it kind of stripped down my fear of war and what I saw as strength. There was a healthy shame, and there was a sadness of just beauty that was missing. So instead of me trying to take myself out of my environment, the women made sure that they kind of use me as their to make up for their mistakes as well, because they saw all these men as their sons too. So these women felt like as a whole, they didn't do enough to pour value into these boys as well. Mm-hmm. So they just poured everything in me, and my whole thing is make your war beautiful, because I started to pick the beauty that was just missed by everyone, and because of my imagination, which was the most powerful tool that I had, I just started to shift my world and my scenes. So, in my work is, there's just a lot of things that I saw that was missed, because a lot of kids like me wasn't in my group, so they didn't have someone to strip down the fear and the evil and the judgment of war and trying to survive. So for me, I owed that firmness to them, to allow me to be still and to actually create what I wanted to see, instead of war being more powerful than me. They taught me I could be more powerful than war. So war is very, very emotional. It's very emotional. When you strip everything down, the weapons and all the toughness, it's a very it's a very weak thing. And and I found a lot of healing in that, because I didn't misjudge myself. I didn't misjudge my country by just seeing all of these horrible things, because there's no way I would ever want to go back to a scene like that. So I made sure I created a scene that I would love to come back to. Mm-hmm. And that's why art has been so great in allowing me to create that. So
yeah. Incredible. I know that one of your works questions God. There is The Boy Who Killed God. Do tell us about that work.
Yes, the boy who killed God. When war started, I was speaking of COVID. I was looking for a mask, my mask, something to protect me. I didn't want to have to face it myself, so I reached for a lot of things like fear and evil and right and wrong, all of these things, and God as well. Right, age 6, God was going to come down and just save me and just stop everything, and there was this preacher just asking the soldiers to repent. His voice was very powerful. I mean, things were just chaotic. It didn't make sense. So, so I honestly thought God came down, and I was like, all right, well, it's only been a couple hours, so this wasn't that bad. And there was this child soldier who just got up very calmly and just walked over to the preacher, and I started to notice a shift. Like the voice started to crack, the preacher started to shrink a little bit, and the preacher then started to beg the boy to save his life. And the boy emptied out his entire clip on the preacher, which was, like ammo wasn't cheap. So if you lose all your ammo, you're pretty much done. So to go all out, there was a statement being made, and the boy turned around to the crowd and just yelled, I killed God, I killed God, and just walked right back and just sat down. And for me, that void that I had so far up in the sky that was going to protect me, it kind of just gave me a blank canvas to okay, you're responsible for your reality, in this environment. And it's up to you to actually bring out the color, the void that was missing, which was colors. So as you can see in that piece, the boy on the far, I don't know if it's the same thing, on the far left is very firm. Even there's a crown on top of his head just because of how firm of the person that he was. You knew he was from the beginning. And me, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm shocked, fluid, a little firm, but not sure of myself. The preacher is in a, I'm drawn in a way as a snake, because humans, we kind of give a snake a bad rep, Adam, Eve, snake, devil, and it's us. It's not a snake has, snakes are not bad, bad creatures. But even in the war, which is on top, you can see the AK in gold, the weapon that I thought that was supposed to be the most powerful in that war wasn't. The most powerful weapon was us, how we value ourselves, the lack of love that we had for ourselves to actually create a mess, in that way. And for my country, in order for us to heal, I know the charity and the hospitals and all of that is great, but if we don't see the value within us, we're gonna reach for that mask again for just survival, for just protection, but not for healing.
Yeah.
And
there's no doubt that war definitely has a large impact on women. They're oftentimes assaulted. There's a lot of violence that comes along with war. And in the depictions of your work, how else do you think issues like these are addressed? Do you have community conversations?
That was the only thing that I couldn't stomach in war. When I say stomach, is to transform into something beautiful. And rape was everywhere you looked. It wasn't 5 minutes. It's just wherever you look, it was happening. And it wasn't rape in the sense of it just didn't mix. It was till death. swarms of it's brutal. It wasn't. I'm not supposed to be able to explain it, right? But the women started to do something incredible. Whenever a girl was grabbed to be raped, they started to cheer. And I know it sounds, I know, but what it did, it made the mood so uncomfortable for those men. Because, and the reason why they started to cheer, because we tend to put solace, which is really a weak energy, on things that has no fault in a girl being raped, we shouldn't, the women, we shouldn't feel sorry for her, we should feel sorry for the men. Like, which is a big shift, like shame on them, not shame on, and they started to cheer, and the men just couldn't, they wasn't comfortable in it, so they returned the anger on the crowd. And then it started small, and like, so now whenever you hear cheering, you knew what was happening, but there was this huge energy of power to make the scene uncomfortable by just pouring love, right? So yeah, I mean, there was a contrast in a lot of ways that I experienced war than most people, and I owe it to those women who were artists, and I think that's why I survived the war, being this right now, because I was raised by artists. I mean, we didn't call them that, but it's just their mind, their imagination, how the contrast of everything.
Yeah. Powerful. That is powerful. Thank you for sharing. It's strong women across the continent that have raised most of us. Yeah. I do credit my mother and my aunt to my raising as well. So that's really powerful to hear. And you've turned out incredibly, doing such amazing work and continuing conversations like this. So thank you. Thank you. Let me pelt over to you, Hakim. Hakim has been in the atrium a while. Earlier today, he's painting a mural that is still a work in progress. Incredible work. I'd love to, in case you haven't seen it, please do take a walk in the atrium before, at the end of our session here, and look at his work. Let's start there. I know you're painting a young lady whose work, Mwana, which translates across so many parts of the continent. Do tell us about her, and then we'll piggyback onto your previous work.
Okay, thank you. It's not a mural, it's a canvas.
It's a canvas, yeah. Acrylics on canvas.
Mural is bigger.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a mural. So maybe I can talk about this one later. Just first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. I can also see people from my country connected, and it's very late. For example, Said Nadra, hi.
Yeah.
Thank you for being connected. Thank you, Marina, and all the team for this opportunity, because we are a small country. I come from Comoros Islands, so it's a good opportunity for us. And that's why I ask, how did you know us? Because we are a small country, small African country. Of course, we had a very good participation of African Cup, but that's another point. So thank you, everybody. On the canvas, yes, I painted a Comorian woman named Nasria. She lives in Paris, and it's a very interesting young woman. She's very talented. She's in fashion design, and I really love these pictures of her because she's wearing Ceremonies, a traditional fabric from our countries. In West Africa, you have the wax, of course, and in our parts of Africa, we have the kanga. In our country, it's named leso. Okay. And I work with my friends, I won't say colleague, it's friends. I will start with Charo and Makins. It's, let's say, street artists, graffiti artists. They're a little bit younger than me, and they are in Comoros. and they paint with me in Comoros. We do a lot of things in Comoros, and we try to mix graffiti and street art with our, traditions and things like that. And on the Leso, you usually find a proverb or a sentence. So we work on it. So I try to find like old proverb from our, grandfathers.
Yeah.
And we work around it. So in Casablanca, I wrote Yaheyam Rigujo Yezamjusa, which means maybe my friend Ali can traduce it better than me, but it means when somebody go on the tree to climb, he knows why he's going. Even if everybody doesn't understand what he's doing, he has a reason, And for this canvas here in Washington, I will write another proverb, very interesting, especially for this occasion and this project. I will write Beza Duja Gavumwamba, which means, it will be more difficult to explain, but we are islands in the ocean, Indian Ocean, and in the sea and the ocean you can have waves, and where there is a wave, there is a way. It's like a sense of optimism in a situation with no apparent solution. So I love this sentence. And
I think it's preservation of African heritage, of culture from, the people that, when you create that, especially when young people are forgetting so much of our own heritage, I think it is important to have this centered within art.
You mean the proverb?
The proverbs.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, but about the meaning of the sentence, I link it with the youth, because, for example, in our country, the situation is very bad, and I can see every day in the studio, because I founded a creative studio there with Charo, Makins, and even others. There are also a woman named Saida Said. She's a very talented artist. I showed you Marina what she does, what she do. Yazid, younger guys, and Amu, calligrapher, because we have also calligraphy in our countries.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of young peoples, So it's a hope.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's important that when you speak, I do hear a lot of work with young people, and I know you center a lot of youth empowerment. The collective of young people that you work with has learned a lot of their work from you. And I know that through the past couple of years, you've been able to work with them to explore different issues. For instance, in 2019, when Kenneth, the cyclone hit in Comoros, you were able to get them together and create works exploring this issue. Do share about that project.
Okay, that's interesting. For example, I just thinking about it. Charo, just after this cyclone, I don't know in English if it's cyclone or hurricane.
Hurricane.
I don't know.
Cyclone.
Hurricane.
Yeah.
His home completely was destroyed because of the hurricane. It was in 2019. So there is a real impact in his life, and with Swana, this is the name of our group. We worked around it. We are producing walls, and also we are doing workshop with the World Bank and UNICEF and a lot of organizations, creating illustrations and that kind of things. Yes.
Yeah. Incredible. I mean, it's important to have these conversations through art, and it's a clever way to get audiences to have this discourse and engage with the work. The mural that was up earlier is in a public space. The mural that we saw in the previous picture is in a public space.
Yes.
Is this how you get your work out there? Do tell us how you get the work out there and what conversations or interactions you have with your audiences.
You mean the how it happened?
How, yeah, like when you create the work and put it out there, have you ever had interactions with audiences and how it speaks to communities, or what
Yes.
conversations you want people to?
Yeah, of course. You know, I'm from graffiti, so
Yeah.
we are painting not in the studio, alone in the studio, Taki. It's with the people, and it's very important for me actually, you know, to meet people. It's like energy, you know, and of course it was in Morocco, in Casablanca, exactly.
Yeah.
During a festival, the name of the festival, it was Casamuja. And that year, it was in 2020, I think, or 19, I don't remember exactly. And the theme was the new scene of African street artists. So I met a lot of artists that year, Mohawudu from Ghana, RBS from Senegal, a lot of very talented artists. And of course, we had different places in the city. It's in the center in the city. It's next to the Rond-Point Welmes in Casablanca. And it's a very popular place. So, of course, when you are painting on the building in the life of the people, they come to see you, you know,
Yeah.
to try to understand what is it, what it means, who is that woman. So I explained, this is my mom, and this is the proverb from our country. I'm from Comoros. So that's an occasion then to explain where is this country? What is Comoros? What, Cameroon? No, Comoros. So it's like, it's very interesting to meet different people from different places and to talk with them. You know, when I was painting that wall, a man opened his window and said, "Hey, hi, how are you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine, and you?" And he gave me a tea, you know, mint tea, and we took mint tea like this.
Nice.
It was
Yeah.
very nice. That's what I love in this type of art. You are with the people, so things are happening. Sometimes good things, sometimes bad things, but things are happening.
And it starts conversations.
Yeah, and it's food for you.
Yeah.
You know.
True.
So even today, I met a lot of people. I met Marina. I met other artists, and it's, you know, the story continues.
Yeah. To share. Thank you very much, Hakim.
Thank you, Nicholas.
I know we have Amina online. Is Amina joining us today? Amina? Yes, Amina is joining us from Niger. Amina's documentary, Wrath in the Wind, was screened earlier today. In case you haven't had the opportunity to watch it, I'm sure there's ways to get the documentary so you can experience the incredible story that she's telling, exploring extraction of radioactive material in her city in Niger. Amina is going to be speaking to us in French, so we'll have translations. Amina, thank you for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Amina, we hear you.
Yes.
Je dirais que je suis.
So I would say that I'm very happy to be among you. I see that there are other artists from other countries, and I'm really delighted to be part of this panel. So I imagine that you've already seen my film. So I just wanted to talk about my experience as a director, especially in a country like Niger. I know that there are many people who know the difference between Niger and Nigeria, but they are two neighboring countries. Nigeria is Anglophone and Niger is Francophone, so Niger is a separate country, and this is Nigeria. So I made the film in the northern part of Niger, in a small town called Arlit, and that's where uranium is mined. This is done by a company called Areva, now called Urano. This uranium is taken to France. I think 1 out of 3 bulbs works or functions because of this uranium. It wasn't a city, it was a camping area. It was created from scratch because there was an activity there for developing uranium. There were people from Niger, from other countries, even from France, who came to work, and little by little, the city was built. So my connection to this film is that my father worked in one of the mines as an electrician, a staff electrician. He was on the electricity team for this company. There are 2 companies. One is called Penulac. The other one is called Sumai. Comunat is underground. It's 250 meters from the surface. So my father worked in this mine, and when I was little, I thought that the mine was just like any other job. So, like working at the bank, I would just hear my father talk about work, but I didn't know much about it. And up until the point when 21 years ago, we visited the mine, and I realized that it was a hole. And I had started to do audiovisual studies, and I became interested in this mining activity because seeing my father going into this hole, I thought it must be very difficult. So I thought I would make a documentary on this work. It was a way to pay tribute to my father. And then when I became interested in this activity, I realized that during this activity, there were quite a few things connected to that, like destruction of the environment, all of the waste that is there. On the poster, if you look, there's a mountain. It's not really a mountain. It's all of the radioactive waste that's on the construction site. So that's why we became interested in this, that all this activity, the pollutions, the illnesses that were linked to these activities. That's where I decided. So it will be, I've decided that if we would focus on the environmental aspect. And when I started to research this, it was an area I didn't know a lot about. It was almost taboo. Everything that we did there was just work, and all these aspects were not talked about, all the effects that this activity can have on health of people and workers. So when I went to make the film, I would approach people to get more information. Unfortunately, as a woman, obviously, there were a lot of people who would say to me, how will you dare to talk about such a sensitive subject in a film? It was really complicated to get information. But my father agreed with me doing this, and that was lucky. Otherwise, I don't think I would have gone forward. He's somebody who encouraged me a lot to make this film. And so during my research, since this was a region dominated by nomads, and people would tell me that they had quite a few herds, and when all of these activities, the herds started to die. And so it was all this information that I was able to have to get through my research. And this really made me want to make this film. And I was able to make it.
Amina.
And my father also
Yes, could you do expound a little more on some of the impacts of the uranium mining that because you talked about camels were dying. How else has, in the documentary and the work that you did, what other issues came up as the result of this activity in Niger?
Je ne sais pas si j'ai bien compris la question. Vous voulez savoir l'impact de cette
Do
activité.
you want to understand better the impact of such an activity on the people, on the population? Is that right?
On the economy and the
My
people.
English is not very good.
You know, that's about it, Amina. Yes. If you can tell us about the impact on the economy and the livelihood of the people.
Voilà, en fait, tout à l'heure, je disais que
Earlier, I said that 1 out of 3 light bulbs in France operates thanks to the uranium from Niger. We can produce so much electricity, and it's also a way to say that the population of the country does not benefit from this activity. And I've seen all of the diseases because of the radiations, and this causes diseases. Often there are sand winds, and there's a lot of waste that are deposited in the environment and has an impact on people's health as well as the environment. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have, Amina. Thank you. Do carry on. I also know that, in tackling issues around, because this really centers climate change and how it's affecting the communities in Niger. Because when you think about mining and its impact, these are issues that we often evade and not talk about. People are prone to talking about development and energy, but we don't talk about the side effects and how it's impacting people. And you're doing that, working with other young people, I believe, to get this film done. I also know that you focused on education in another of your works, a film that explores how young children and school-going children have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Please do tell us how you got to explore that story and why.
Ça serait bien si j'ai un traducteur parce que
It would be very nice if I could have an interpreter because I do not understand all of the words in English.
Amina? No? Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm sorry, there should be an interpreter, so I'm sorry it doesn't work for your channel. La question, normalement, c'était l'autre pellicule qu'on voulait montrer, c'est la scolarité confinée. On voudrait bien savoir ta description de ton projet sur l'impact du Covid sur la scolarité au Niger.
COVID on school children in Niger.
moi, c'était où, parce que quand il y avait
Actually, because of COVID-19, schools were closed, so children could not go to school. They spent months on end without going to school. I saw the case of a child who, of course, would be at home and bored because at school he had a world of his own. And he had to do his exercises alone and study alone, and he was very frustrated, that child. And COVID-19 had a very big impact on these children. We didn't have the means necessary to continue educating these children. If you take the case of Niger, it is a country where the internet connection is lacking in some regions. So not all school children have internet access, particularly those who are located in remote villages. So it was hard for them to continue schoolwork because they could not follow online because of their lack of internet connection. 80% of children in Niger were not able to continue their schoolwork because of the lack of internet connection. And so it was also hard for them where things were done on TV, because in remote villages, they did not have access to that either. It was really an obstacle, a major obstacle, COVID-19, for these children and for education. So I wanted to show how children missed school and felt nostalgic about school, and that was my point.
Incredible. Thank you, Amina. And I hope we do have access to that work as well, so we can share in this experience, but also learn and find avenues in which we can better support communities that we come from. Do you want to interpret that?
Amina, Douglas vient de te remercier et dit aussi qu'on voudrait bien voir la pellicule aussi de 5 regards sur le coronavirus au Sahel.
I would like to thank you. I would like to see the film on COVID-19 in the Sahel.
Merci.
Thank you. I don't know if there are any other questions regarding this.
We shall be able to get back with more questions, Amina. We do have questions that are coming through across Twitter, and the audiences will also ask questions. So we'll get back to you when questions do come up. Thank you. Michael, let's move on to your work. The work that is on exhibition today is a collection of works from Ethiopia over the last 11 years. There's conversations about urbanization and development, and how this has affected the world of Ethiopia and the people that are there. Do take us into that work.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me for this exhibition. It's my first time to be in this kind of panel, so I'm a bit nervous, but I will try to explain. The work I've been doing, documenting Addis Ababa for the past 15 years, how urbanization affects collective memory and individual memories. So it's more personal work, because I documented the places I've lived and I've known through my childhood, how it changed and how the social structure is affected in this neighborhood. Because some neighborhoods are completely wiped out to build high-rise building, and now we have financial districts, and it's been a bit messy, let's say, how it affected the people, because when neighborhood is wiped out, they put people in different areas, new condominiums, so you will not be moving to a new area with your neighbor, so you start life again. So I try to see these things through my photos.
Yeah, I know you mentioned in one of the readings about your work that the local women in these communities, the women that used to wash clothes in the neighborhoods, and those that used to produce injera, cook injera for the neighborhood, have been forced to move. There's an evident conversation around migration and economic impact of urbanization and development. How are you able to center throughout the work that you're creating, center conversations like this? How else has this affected the people, the local people, the real communities that you come from?
Yeah, I try to create a conversation. I don't try to make a statement about it. It's more observation, who is privileged and who's underprivileged through this, let's say, development, urbanization. So many people are affected, especially the poor will be very much affected because you move to the outskirts of the city and transportation time and the cost of living becomes more difficult in this kind of situations. And I try to see and observe this and document.
Ethiopia has changed in the last 15 years. What have you seen in the trajectory, and how has your work changed in the last 15 years?
It's difficult to say, you know. It's a lot of things are happening, you know. Buildings are everywhere. New buildings are popping up, but life is getting more expensive. Transport, cost of living, buying houses is difficult. Renting is difficult. So for some it's better. For few who can afford it, but the majority is getting in a tough situation, I think, from my observation.
Do tell us more of your work. I know this is about how many pieces are in the collection. Do center us more in, the pieces that you've captured.
Yeah, it's difficult to talk about it without showing the picture, but if I can talk about this image, this area used to be a farming area, and now it's new condominiums are built up, and the people who are living in the center of the city are being moved here. So it's usually Addis Ababa, we didn't have condominium houses living like vertically. We have houses we are used to live in compound houses. So this is a new lifestyle we're learning and trying to adjust to it. If we have more images, I could have said more.
Yeah, we do have more images, I believe. The audiences please do look up the digital catalog online so you can see more of the artists' work and also learn more about their work and their history and how they've gotten to create where they are. If there's questions, please do feel free to take the microphone over there and ask questions to any of the artists. Cedric, yes. Yes. Yeah, but we do have one more artist who's going to be joining us. Cedric, please do come up. He's not here. Cedric is online. Forgive me. Cedric is joining us virtually. Cedric Mizero from Rwanda. Cedric, are you here? We do apologize for internet connections. This is something that we need to solve across Africa. And like Amina explored in her film, internet has been a very key part of education programming that has limited so many students from continuing with school. Cedric? Probably not, but I'll give you an echo that Cedric works with women, rural women in Rwanda, and I know that he grew up with his mother, who was a dressmaker. She tailor-made so many clothes for him growing up, and that inspired him to start creating garments, and he joined the fashion industry. And in the work that we're exhibiting of Cedric's work, you'll see women who are from rural parts of Rwanda that he has adorned in modern costuming, part of his works. And in 2018, these women were on the runway at the Kigali Fashion Week, adorning these beautiful outfits that you'll be able to see more of them in the exhibition, and that's some of the work. And Antonio, are you, I think someone is bombing our screen. Okay. Technology. Okay, yes, I was saying, Cedric, there you are. We apologize for that. Yes. Art is free expression. Cedric, did we lose you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Cedric.
Okay, because there was some noise.
Yes. Thank you for joining us, Cedric. I was just giving a brief about your work. Please do share with our audiences Beauty in the Heart. Do tell us about your work.
I'm trying to figure out with my phone. I don't see myself.
No, don't worry, we see you.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. It's really, really pleasure and beautiful to be part of this. I've been waiting for this for so long.
Yeah.
We had this program, it's been now 2 years, and yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with Marina and everyone who was part of this. I'm sorry, I'm sweating. It's been very hot. I'm in California now, and the heat it's crazy. So I'm an artist born, raised in Rwanda, and I was born in the small village called Gishoma. And grow up and living with women, it's been part of an inspiration, you know, like a little bit about Rwanda as the history and that we had, women being very, very big part of the big contribution of building the country and then the power that they had. It was a remarkable that for me that I wanted to share their story. And then, you know, I wanted, if I do art, that people will see that's the women, you know, that's, you know, when you see the picture, you already say, oh, that's the women. And that has been part of my journey. And Beauty in the Heart, it was a project where I wanted just to raise the voice of the women and the thing that they do for our everyday life. Without women, I think, farmers wouldn't be nothing because they are the seed, you know, they are the one that makes us eat. And that there was an absence of them not being recognized with what they can do, especially the women in the rural areas where I was born. It felt like they were forgotten. And then I want the people to see them as the gold, as the only thing, that richness that we had. And I've been doing different projects around women. There was everything. Actually, I work across film, painting, and it's mixed media, but it's always the center of my work. It's women, because I feel like we talk so much about women, but we don't really realize how strong and how what they can do for ours. And then it's been always the idea of being the voice and, you know, putting them out there.
Mm-hmm. You're giving women agency. They do have their own agency, but you're creating space through a creative form that is fashion and photography. What issues do you think are very central for the women that you work with? I know you say they are farmers. How was this experience for them, that transformation? How was it for them?
For me, like, fashion and photography, it was always a way to have the attention. I always want to use that part as captures people's attention and then driving them to my world. I wanted also them to make a path for them to be able to tell their own stories as well. So when you look at them, you see something, I think it was just an easy way of having attention for both of us, for all of us. And then I think fashion and photography have brought it up.
Yeah, incredible. Do take us more into how the work began. I know that the women eventually were able to walk the runway at the fashion week in Kigali. Do take us from the beginnings of the project, and why did you start pursuing adorning women in more upscale costume, urban costume for rural settings?
For me, I wanted to. Yeah, it started I had a project called Fashion for All. It was where I wanted to have everyone to have access to fashion, without limitation, without social status, without anything else. Just like everyone could access to be fashionable, to look beautiful, to feel beautiful. Okay. And while I was doing that, I think women were the center. And then I come out with the idea of also representing them, to have a collaboration where they're gonna prove and then be themselves on the platform that was always there.
Sorry, someone is bombing our space. Do complete your thought, and we'll move on to the next representation.
So yeah, and then yeah, it's been that for me too. And then I brought them to Kigali to show the people in the cities, remind them to look back again and see the beauty, and they see the strength, and also letting them see the world in a different perspective. Yeah.
Thank you very much. More of the artists' work that are on the panel today is available online, so please do look at the digital catalog so you can learn more about their work and follow them online as well. As we come to the end of this session, allow me we have one more artist who's going to be joining us virtually. Her name is Puno Selesho. Puno is joining us from South Africa. She's a spoken word artist. And among so many other things, she created an avenue that supports young women with costumes and clothes. And Puno, thank you for joining us. We are excited that you're here today.
Thank you so very much. I am sitting in the dark in South Africa. Load shedding has just hit us. So I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me. I've put candles, I've put lights, but I'm so honored and excited to be spending this time with you.
Thank you, Puno. Yes, we do hear you. There might be a bit of a connection problem, but please do carry on. Puno is going to be performing. So over to you, Puno.
I am Puno, Puno the poet. I invite you to understand my words and me. I've been told that I should have been born bitter and angry. In some spaces, I am too woman, too black. The words I utter, too woman, too black. But I say no. My words are birthed from the soil in my own chest. People keep digging graves with every phrase, but I'm planting flowers instead. I am not angry. I am brave. I am not abrasive. I am determined. I am not too woman. I am woman enough. I am not too black. I am a dark chocolate delight. And I will work these words and toil the soil until the joy in my bones grows. Here, this tongue is sharp. and I will shape my own exceptional reality using only the finest materials, like hope and humanity. What will your words be? Choose wisely, and let's use words that grow well here in Africa. Thank you so much. That's my first piece. That is just an introduction to who I am, what I stand for, the things that I hope to achieve with my art, and almost an identity piece. I wanted to find out, should I stop my video? Would that make the audio a bit clearer? Would you guys be comfortable for my second and final piece?
So your audio is better, your video is paused. You could try to pause your video and then, but you're better now. But we heard the audio perfectly. You can pause your video and put it back on, and you can proceed.
Perfect. I just want to say a very, very big thank you for this opportunity to add my voice to this incredible and prolific panel that you guys have put together. The artists here are incredible. This platform is so rich, so vibrant, and such a beautiful representation of the various brothers and sisters in the various regions across the continent, and the stories that they represent, the moments in time, the different narratives that they're able to project and again represent, from the personal all the way to the political. It's incredible. And with that, my next piece, How to Wear Afrika. Africa, come with me. Lean in and listen. Lend me your ear for a second. We have worked, we have walked, and we have wandered. But my dear family, we have finally arrived, so let's dig deeper. Let's dig deeper than the reductionist labels of third world and developing, using these terms to compare our apples to the world's oranges. If we keep trying, we will always lose. Africa, it is time that you do you. Do business like you. Do family like you. Do community like you. Let it look like you. Taste like you. Feel like you. Be true. And the trust will follow. For us, sustainable means that I do not live for me or for you, but for we, for us. That means we do not allow money to dictate who we are. Who we are should dictate how we perceive and handle wealth. I implore you, do not I desire an African class existence, an existence guided by our own essence. One of commitment, of respect, of non-conformity, not of begging, but of giving, of blessing from a belly of abundance, where we live big, bold, and bright, where we celebrate and ululate, where we understand that we are on holy ground. So we treat and treasure the soil as such, where we honor one another, where we house our neighbors, an existence that creates a space for fierce and elegant femininity. Without tracing its figure in the shadow of masculinity, Africa, remember your identity. Unlearn what the world has taught you to be. Reteach your tongue the language of morality. Let your existence exude hope. Your presence should drip with an unshakable sense of loving. And may you capture and hold a room with an aura. I would like to wear Africa again, and for it to mean something. So leaders, businesses, artists, and politicians, Africa is putting her trust and this challenge in your hands. represent well. And again, be true, and the trust will follow you. Thank you so, so much. Thank you. I've so enjoyed the time on the panel. It's been just so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Puno. What a delight. Represent well, and each of you has represented our continent and your countries very well. It is beautiful, the work that you're creating, and I will echo that while it's men on the panel here, all your work does center women, and there's voices of women coming through in the work that you create. And it's important for young men like ourselves, yourselves, and us in here to create space, carve out space in a world where we've taken so much space, ensure that there's space created for everyone. So thank you. I do invite all of us here to join the artists and myself and Marina and the rest of the team of the World Bank in the Atrium. We'll be able to mingle, talk to the artists, find out more about their work, but also enjoy the rest of the exhibition. Thank you very much.
So we don't have the opportunity to ask questions?
Live, so please do ask questions. My apologies.
Just
that can end our virtual session, but if you do have a question, please. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Ali Al-Wahti. I'm a consultant at the World Bank. I work in urban development. So, Michael, thank you for making all of these points because that's very critical. And I do understand. I first visited Addis Ababa in 1977. Then I returned in 2019, and I saw the changes, and it was really huge. And it's really tough to see that, it's true. And basically the issues that you're talking about, they affect urban development, and they affect people like me who are working in development. And I really appreciate, and I give you a really good hand because it's very important to document what you're doing because it gives us, people like us, important information on what not to do to advise government on what's better to do. So it's very important. Thank you very much. I have questions for all of the panelists, maybe with those who are really here. What are the key messages or one key message you will give to young people like you in Africa who are aspiring to be what you are now and who will want to develop in this area? The second question is, you know the World Bank is working and other institutions work to support governments to alleviate poverty and deal with serious issues like the one Michael pointed. What would you give to the bank as key message or where to support the government to make things change? For example, in education is very important. So what, from your perspective, you'll give one message to institutions like the bank? Finally, the last question will be for Hakim, who called me his friend. I'm his friend, but I'm also your uncle. Thank you. I saw your painting that you haven't finished, your friend. She's pointing her eyes to the sky. If you can give some more messages about it, is there a message somewhere, what you want to explain? If there is a message to understand from there, that view that, she's looking up there. As you know, the Comoros is a Muslim country. Is there something related to that? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Uncle. Maybe I can start.
Yeah, it's your uncle. You should start.
Yeah. About this campus. Okay. Yeah, but I like. Okay. It's nice.
No, he's telling you.
The microphone.
Okay, sorry. There is absolutely no link with Islam and Muslim things. But about the eyes, yes. Actually, I had two pictures. I had one, she had the eyes closed. And the other, she was looking up. And the answer of this question is linked with the choice of the sentence. It is the hope and the little wave, you know? And I think we have to keep, even if we don't see the solution, and you know how is it in our country, we have to keep the eyes open. And that's the wave, and that's my interpretation of that sentence. That's my answer.
Thank you. Michael, on development and urbanization.
Sorry, what was your question?
One key message you give to young people who aspire to be like you. The other question is, one key message you give to the World Bank and other institutions that are supporting countries.
Yeah, I don't think I would advise young photographers to be like me, but to be like them. To find themselves and to express and to be critical thinkers of their environment and their country. I think for the World Bank, it's difficult to tell, I think, our organization to do this and that, but it's nice support you give us for this art exhibition. I think it should continue and it should do more of this, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
So I would say to be valuable to the system, and I will encourage them to be like me, to be to be valuable in a way where it hasn't been done before, because we tend to go one way. I'm speaking about Black people. We tend to have like one lane and one routine that works, and we all follow in that line. So I've been trying to not necessarily be different, like that way is wrong. It's just like this way hasn't been overly seen or promoted before, and be valuable to the system. And as far as for the bank, or for any institution, it's like being in America, everything that we've said about Africa, there are pockets here that needs help too. So I'm very careful of stating problems of Africa as if there's families here that are going through the same thing in the United States. So instead of taking their resources, it's like what value do I have to offer them, you know? So it's a even exchange. So therefore, the power still lies in the hands of Africa. I'm great. I mean, just to ask for help all the time is not. It doesn't feel right for me, because we're all great people. So find a way you could be valuable and find your art. Doesn't have to be, painting. We all have incredible, especially in Africa. Everybody has an incredible story that the states love and will benefit from, and write movies and screenplays about. But in the end, we have to learn how to love each other, but not being taken advantage of by every other country. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what's coming out.
Thank you, Taki. Amina, and I'm going to first hold you. Those two questions are also going to come to you. There is one more question that we are going to get, and then we shall come back with the same question.
So first I wanted to thank you all for coming to speak with us. And I wanted to ask, how has your experience with gender equality affected how you view others' art, not just your fellow panelists, but art everywhere?
Thank you very much. Keep that question. Amina, if you might want to contribute to the same question about advice for young people and advice for the World Bank and governments in relative to the work and the issues that you discuss.
Amina, tu as besoin que je traduise?
Je pense que j'ai compris. Il demande les conseils que je peux donner aux jeunes.
I think I understood. Advice I can give to young people and to the World Bank, am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
My only advice to young people who'd like to become or be artists is to work. If you have a goal or a specific objective, you have to go all the way. That was my case. And when I became discouraged, for instance, when I made this movie, then I would not have finished it. So you have to go all the way, work, 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 and reach your goal. That's the only advice I could give to young people who want to be artists. As for the advice I could give to the World Bank regarding Niger, for instance, one of the poorest countries in the world, if I talk about art, we don't have any money or resources to do art. If I want to do cinema, it is something that requires a lot of money. And I have to go to other countries to show my project and get funding. If there is a way for the World Bank to, I don't know, if there could be some form of a contract with the community in Niger, so we could have, for example, more money to help young people who want to work in filmmaking. I need to share my experience. I'd love to share my experience, but I need equipment and I need a space for this, so I need the money to work, and we don't have that. We lack also equipment. I don't know if there's any way to work with the government of Niger in order to help our youth who wants to work in filmmaking, for instance, to answer your question.
Thank you very much, Amina. Yes to creating avenues for advocacy and empowerment for artists to create the work that we do. I do second that. The question that the young lady asked, how is your experience with gender interacting with artists? Was that the question? Yeah, gender with what you see in the world, and not just with the work that you've seen with the artists, but elsewhere in the world.
Did you say gender equality? Like, is there you're talking about representation of different genders in the art world, or sorry, I didn't answer the question.
Not just gender equality, but just the experiences that you've seen, the experiences of women, how that has affected how you see art.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, women has they're great at filling the void, so I think that's why it's unique, because there are men up here. We're not standing in for women. We're just standing with them, and it's just been we've just been blessed to just be a part of their upbringing and the knowledge that they have given us, in which is the perfect expression is beauty, and I don't think there's anything in the world that explains that more than a woman. And so for art, we all create art to add more beauty to our experience. So I think for me, it's been very easy transition to be an artist just by being surrounded by women my whole entire life. So,
Thank you. Michael and Hakim, that question?
I think I didn't understand the question with women.
It is around gender, how you interact with gender in your work. It could be...
Okay, in general, in my life.
In your work.
In my work?
Yes.
If I may, I think her question is, how does your work with women, having worked with women, right? How has that impacted your view of art? Do you see art differently, having worked with women, focusing on women? Do you see art differently than you would have seen it had you been doing something else or working with other groups?
Okay, honestly, for me, it's not really a subject, honestly. Meeting somebody with his complexity as a person, it's not directly linked to a gender. This is it's my feelings, I'm sorry. Maybe I should say something different, but that's how I see it.
It's how you navigate your work.
So I don't really care if it's a woman, you know. It's sensibility. So I don't see a huge difference because I worked, you know, as a street artist and graffiti artist. I worked with many peoples, women or men, and I know guys very, you know, sensitive and women very strong and super courageous. Or I don't see it. I don't feel it. Okay. I see personalities.
So if I may then, I suppose perhaps maybe your work with women and your work with the other groups just reinforces that we're all, you know, the same. We have different shades, whether it be strength, whether it be, you know, we can all be emotional, we can all be different things, right? So it doesn't matter who you are. You know, art has revealed to you that regardless of your gender, we all express and experience the same.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hubert. That's a very interesting turn of the response. We appreciate that. I'm going to request us to please proceed to the atrium. There is company that is waiting for the rest of us. We shall have more time to mingle with the artists and do ask them more questions. Thank you, good sir, for getting us to ask questions. Thank you all.